Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. So today's Thursday, 4 days ago, Sunday, I started this painting of Tiffany and Jermaine at the Umstead Hotel in Cary, North Carolina. And as anxious as I've been to get back to it, this is the first opportunity I've had to come back and work on their painting. So as you probably know, it's all dry. Hello, my name's Dan. And wedding paintings is one of the things I do. It's one of the main things that I do actually at this point in my career, which has worked out just fine. All right, so anytime I'm going into a dry painting, almost any time that I'm going into a dry painting, I'm going to do it, I'm going to start with glazes because I can, simply because transparent colors are more interesting than opaque ones. Before I begin though, let's talk out loud about how I feel about this painting. Tiffany's pretty close. Jermaine, not so much. We'll talk about that. That'll be the main thing I'm working on today. But before I get to them, I'm quite happy with the painting, happy with the composition, happy with the busyness here and here in the resting area around Jermaine and Tiffany. Happy with overall with the color, not quite so much this color, and I don't know how this looks on your monitor, but it's a little bit too green, aqua, and so I'll fix that with this glaze that I'm about to do right now. I think that the peripheral parts of the painting out here, down here, can actually go even slightly darker than they are. The color, the corners, as you can see, are already vignetted, if I use that, make up that word. But I think I can tighten up the composition by making this area even brighter, and do that by making that area darker. All right, so I have on my brushes here, of course, Liquin is my standard go-to medium. I like it because it dries fast, transparent, and glossy. And all three of those characteristics I like. At the moment then, I have just plain oxide red. I don't know what brand. Oh, all of a sudden I just realized, let me move the painting over and then move you guys over. It's always fun to do glazes. It's completely safe because anything that I put onto the canvas right now, I can easily wipe it off. If I could wipe it all off if I wanted to. Just dip a rag into, so it's glazing is a very safe technique. I mean, again, I've probably said this too many times over the years, but I feel like glazing is an undervalued technique in this generation among painters. Living in centuries past, it was a very heavily utilized technique, and it became much less so in the 20th century for very specific reasons that I won't go into right now. The painting's flat and all that. But now that we've all learned that the painting is indeed flat, so we're not painting pretty pictures, but we're in fact painting stuff that looks like paint. Now that we've learned all that, then I feel like we can go back and say, okay, then let's paint stuff that looks like paint, that looks like the most beautiful colors we can achieve, which is always transparent colors. I've given that That rant of mine dozens of times over the years. Why are transparent colors preferred over opaque ones? Now that doesn't mean I don't want some opaque color. Of course I do, because the principle of variety is even more important than the principle of transparency. Variety trumps transparency. So I want some opaque colors. Now everything you're hearing right now, that is all Dan Nelsonisms. Okay? So I try to let you know when I'm talking like any other ordinary art professor or teacher, and when I'm talking like my weird self. Okay, so all this talk about transparent colors, that's me. That's the weird Dan Nelsonism, okay? You won't necessarily get that from your local college art professor. Or your, okay? And we all have our whatever strong opinions. I'm sorry. I hope nobody's watching me for the first time. Get used to it. A little jesting never hurt anybody. All right. So I'm now put on a combination of ultraviolet. Listen to me. No, I'm not putting ultraviolet paint. Ultramarine. Ultramarine mixed with a little bit of violet. That's where that came from. Dioxazine violet. So I guess I made up a new ultraviolet. It's a combination of ultramarine and dioxazine violet. So I'm making this a little cooler and darker blue. I think I like that a little bit. But now that I've got this on my brushes, it's a good excuse to try to introduce some of that cool stuff, cool color, even into the bride's, even into Tiffany's dress, and also Jermaine's white jacket. They were a very handsome couple. It was a lot of fun painting them. I mentioned I was put on your seatbelt. I'm a very racially healed human being, which means I have the privilege of talking about race with complete or very nearly complete innocence and honesty. So I was the only white person just about at the whole place, and it was delightful. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And yes, black people can dance better than white people. See, that's very politically incorrect, isn't it? And plus, of course, you and I both know I may not be technically correct, but you also know that I probably am correct. That's my impression. And I'm a musician. I already know that black people are better musicians than white people. By and large, we're talking bell curve here. Anyway, see, some of you are already having seizures because it's not proper to talk about racial differences. But that's because you're not healed in your race relations, and I am. I can pull rank on you. I believe God created variety in every sphere of existence because he likes it, and because variety is a good thing. So anyway, all right. I promise I'll stop triggering you guys shortly. Some of you. Those of you who are whatever, never mind. I'll let you self-identify. If you're being triggered right now, my apologies to you, but it's not my problem, it's yours. All right. Now, always, virtually always, after doing any glazing, so I've covered the whole canvas, then I can pick up a rag and lighten then areas. Now, I'm not necessarily wiping off everything that I just put on. I could do that, but I have to rub harder and longer and perhaps add some Gamsol to my rag, which of course I'm not doing. So if I just rub it a little bit like this, then I'm just removing some of what I just applied. So as you can see, this is a really fun technique for achieving the perfect value in color because I can rub it long and hard to get more lightness, or rub quickly and not so hard to get a little bit of lightness. I hope all that made sense to you. It made sense to me, but I'm not going to repeat it. Right? Yeah, that's nice. Now, let me just, again, before I launch right into Jermaine and Tiffany, I want to look at the whole painting, the rest of the painting, a little bit, and maybe it'll be more interesting for me to paint out here then, because when I get here it gets pretty fussy. First of all, the things that I like about what's going on. This is a typical reception setting inside a room with lots of candles, as you can see, dim lights. And there was actually a window and doors here, but the curtains were closed most of the night. I was happy to see that late in the evening they in fact did open the curtains. See, if I had been in charge of the aesthetics of the evening, I would have had these curtains open early. The reason is, yeah, if I hold a piece of paper here, if I take this element out of the scene, absolutely everything in this room is some version of brown. Yellow, orange, brown. Yellow, orange, red, brown. Now, in actuality, they had these, if you're familiar, I'm sure you are, with theatrical lighting, they had these LED lights set on some kind of purple violet shining up everywhere, which is very typical for a reception. I don't paint it typically. Or you can see a little bit of that here. This is a photo that I've first doctored it up in my phone the other night, and then just a few minutes ago doctored it up again in Photoshop. It's not a very good picture, but it's good enough for me to paint from. And it's a composite, by the way. This table I stuck in there. In actuality, this table right here went all the way across, and I didn't want that. So anyway, but you can see some of the purple, even on this bad print, you can see some of that purple lighting that if you've been to a wedding reception lately, you've probably seen that color. But again, usually I might incorporate a little bit of it, but probably not. And I feel quite safe that Jermaine and Tiffany will remember the evening in these colors. I don't think they'll say, wait, wasn't it more purple than that? They might surprise me, but that's not likely. All right, let me talk about some of the things that and I think if I turn this off, yeah, that's a little dim, but you can actually see a little bit better. I'm quite happy with my treatment of the auxiliary or ancillary people. I talked about this the other night a little bit when I was painting about. I have a lot of experience. It doesn't mean I'm good at it, but I've had to paint crowds or groups of people a lot in my career, and I almost always, a couple of things I do is put them in bunches, put them in couples, pairs, and unless I'm trying to make a dramatic statement about the human condition, the loneliness of the human soul, and then I put a person alone. But most of the time, my people tend to be grouped up, okay, paired up, and then grouped up. And another thing I have become usually pretty careful about when you're painting abstract figures very quickly, make sure that they're all leaning a little bit. It's real easy to go through and make them all, for me anyway, make them all standing too straight. So this is a man, and when I start out these figures, I have no idea if it's going to be a man or a woman. That they just develop little by little. You can see this person's one man leaning here, she's leaning back slightly, this couple leaning toward each other. Same thing here, ever so slightly. This person's sitting just about straight up, woman sitting, man standing with his head tilted ever so slightly. And I like this woman in particular right here. Let me zoom in there. Now this kind of thing happens accidentally. I don't It's not like I plan ahead of time, but she's doing some kind of gesture. She's getting up, she's moving, and just subtle. I just like that because it's real. And then it looks like almost could be 3 women here, but I don't think so. I think it's 2 women and a man. And then another looks like a woman sitting here. So I really 4 women and 1 man. I usually try not to. Yeah, you have to try to keep it balanced. But I do like now. Down here is the wedding cake, which again is a little bit of fiction because in reality the wedding cake was about 20 feet that way. And just to give you a tip, especially if there's anybody here that ever wants to do wedding painting, I have here a number of empty chairs, and I've painted these chairs 100 times. I'm sure that's not literally true, but it feels like it. Whoever invented wedding reception chairs probably made a lot of money. There's 4 or 5 different styles of chairs that I see over and over and over again. This is one of those. And I don't put I put chairs in because it's a significant part of how the room felt. Very often I don't put people because I don't want people on this side of the table blocking the people and blocking the table, right? And so on and so forth. So even here you see is an empty chair facing away from us. So that's a fairly typical. This is all the people, of course, are fictitious. I did look around, and I do this pretty typically. I did look around the room several times throughout the evening to see what colors the women especially were wearing. And I was happy to see there's a fair amount of high chroma, fair intense color. So that was nice because I'd rather put more color than less color in my painting. So now what needs to be done in this area? Not a lot. My favorite word at this stage, fairly late stage of a painting, my favorite word is energy, by which I mean energy level. I want high energy, focal point, high energy, and then generally going up from there, or with little outposts. Like I have an outpost of energy here with the chandelier at the top. Quite a bit of energy over here and here. So I feel like that's appropriate, but not too much. Not so much that it's competing with the bride and groom. Yeah, here's something I don't get to say very often. Transparent colors, of course, and layers of transparency are more busy, are more energetic than opaque colors. And this part of the floor right here, even though it's interesting, I feel like it's a little bit too interesting. Like this is a dark spot from way back in the acrylic stage somewhere. Likewise here and here. I think I'm going to start right there and try to fix that a little bit. It just feels a little bit too energetic to me. So fixing it should be a fairly simple operation. Essentially what I want to do is mix up an opaque version, so that means it's going to have white or Naples yellow or yellow ochre. Those last two, of course, because those are very opaque colors. So I want this color. Ooh, that's very close. Good. And even though I've just mixed up, theoretically, an opaque batch, I'm not going to apply it in an opaque manner. Instead, I'm going to just scumble it on. So one of the words for this kind of painting is scumbling. Another word is I'm just going to make it translucent. So you can still make out some of that interesting texture that's in the background there on the floor, but I've pushed it back, and especially like this one splat of paint. I am not against splats or runs or dribbles, as you know. I like those, all of those, quite a bit. But there's just a little bit too much energy. Again, that's my preferred terminology for this. A little bit too much, a little too busy. That'd be another word that would say the same thing. Just a little too busy. So in a sense, I'm taking this patch of floor and pushing it back, because it was coming toward us, toward the viewer, just a little bit too much. Okay, that might be enough right there. Although, having done it here, I feel like I should do it over here on the far side of the bride, just a little bit, so I have the same color and same. It's the same floor, of course, so I want to have a sense of continuity. Here's a good tip. Hear ye, hear ye. Let me preface my tips by announcing their general quality. Here's a good one. This is the focal point. One of the ways to paint, to think, is high energy and like the bullseye of a target, and then rings of a target. The further you get out from the bullseye, the less and less energy there should be. So the tip would be, one way to paint, there's many, many ways, but one way to work toward this is to start at the bullseye and work out, so that you have a good idea, or a better idea, of how much energy ought to be in each ring of this easy for you to say, proverbial target. Okay? It would be a mistake, in other words, usually, to start the finishing process way out here in the edges, unless, of course, you're doing sort of a mindless, forgive me for picking on you, unless you're doing a rather mindless hyperrealism, which a lot of people do, of course. And it's okay. Everybody should do one. I don't usually say it this way. Everybody should do one. Every artist, I mean, should do at least one hyper-realist, mindless realist painting. One. Just for the experiences and a lot of other reasons. Forgive me, I discovered I had run out of Indian yellow on my palette, so I had to clear some of the old paint off. All right, back in business, mixing colors now. I'm going to try to match this color. I'm going to, in a sense, I'm practicing what I'm preaching right now. I'm going to begin painting the area right around Tiffany and Jermaine, and work out from there. Like I discovered, as I look at it this afternoon, I go, oh, wait a minute, this could be a little bit higher energy. Boom, right here. Boom, just a little bit more. So once again, I'm achieving that with light, with values. Essentially the same color that's already there, just a lighter version of it. And again, it's an opaque paint that I am applying very thinly, so the effect is translucent, right? Never paint with your fingers. I say that every time I paint with my fingers, as you know. But it is true that I do not have any toxic, I don't have any cobalts or cadmiums or other colors that cause cancer in lab rats in California. Thankfully, I'm neither a lab rat nor am I in California, so I feel like my danger is actually minimal. I'm going to, I guess, do that same color a little bit lighter on this side of Jermaine. And what you see me doing right now, which is creating an aura, a glow, a halo around the bride and groom, especially around the bride, is very typical strategy for wedding painting. You can go to weddingpainter.com and look at my wedding paintings, and you'll see that is a technique or a strategy that I utilize on almost every painting. That was a lesson I learned early on. And so this has nothing to do with realism, so to speak. Like, was there really this glow around them? The answer, of course, is, of course not. It's my job to create a beautiful painting. And of course, to give the impression that we all shared when we were there on Sunday evening, right? With Tiffany and Jermaine. Everybody, they will remember the evening in such and such a way, and it's my job to capture the essence of how they're going to remember it. But it's not my job to capture it literally. You know that. I'm preaching to the choir now. Thinking. I know, you wondered what I was doing, did you? I was actually thinking. I don't want to give the impression that this rings of a target analogy, energy, less, is not, you don't want to do that perfectly. That would be bad. We want undulations of energy, generally speaking, that go from high to low. I already mentioned I have, this is fairly high energy for being this close to the corner, and this is fairly high energy for being so far from the bride and groom, and so forth. So it all works together. So right here, this is a mirror hanging on the wall. I don't expect you or anyone else really to recognize that, but that's what it was. And I'll probably incorporate a little bit of reflection of this sconce. There's a light on the fancy light on the wall, and it was reflected here. But I've got this much light of the wall right here, and I want a little bit of that on this side of the mirror. Okay, so I'm going to be, again, using energy language. I'm going to be raising the level of energy quite a bit in this little area right here. Again, hoping I won't overdo it, I'm going to actually mix up a slightly darker color. And I'm painting around what is essentially a small tree, a sapling. The florist is pretty typical, beautiful. Floral arrangements on top of the tables were little bare trees, saplings with no leaves. There are 3 of them in this painting, 1, 2, 3. Not every table had one, so I've included 3 of them in the painting, which I think will serve to accurately reflect the feeling of the room. So what I'm actually doing here, because I'm actually painting a tree, right? It just happens to be a tree that was cut down, a tree with no leaves that was cut down and brought into the building. And so I'm, of course, painting what traditions would call sky holes, which is why I object to the term sky holes altogether, because so many times when I'm painting them, these are, what are we going to call them, wall holes? How silly. Anyway. Anyway, so I'm essentially painting a tree indoors here by negative painting, reverse painting, painting what is not the tree. I haven't said this in a while, so let me say it right now. As an artist, as a painter, be on the lookout always for any excuse, any opportunity you have to negative paint an object or a thing. That means instead of painting the thing, you paint what is behind or around the thing, because that's exactly what you're doing. Anytime you paint sky holes, the traditional term. I think they should be called tree holes, by the way. Then it would apply no matter what the tree was standing in front of. But I was not invited to the committee that made up that term. I wonder when that term was made up. Probably in the 19th century sometime. So I was would have been late to the meeting even if I had been invited. Unconventional, using a pencil, very unconventional. You know that. But that's just part of Dan Nelson's weirdness. I just like the way it looks. I like the way the scratchy pencil lines look, intermixed with the more smushy, if I can use that technical term, the more smushy paint lines. So I've been started incorporating pencil into my paintings probably 5 or 6 years ago. I think most of the good things we do as painters happen by accidental discovery. I mean, I suppose you could take a class, and learn from somebody else, some accidental discovery that they made, certainly. But most of the really good techniques in the world of painting happen by the artist accidentally discovering something. For me, the use of pencil was one of those happy accidents. I want to do something with the front of this table, the tablecloth hanging down. For one thing, it's not quite, in my estimation, not quite representational enough, not quite realistic enough. So it has creases, folds in it as it goes down. And then I'm going to hint, these pencil lines that I'm doing right now are going to be largely or somewhat covered over. So you don't have to worry about those being too pronounced. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And I think I'll keep using these same two brushes, but I want to clean them. So I'm going to, anytime you want any part of your painting to be darker, this is a Dan Nelson mantra, anytime you want any part of your painting to be darker, you achieve that darkening with transparent paint. Okay? So I'm going to begin to paint the creases and the shadow along the bottom of the tablecloth where it hits the floor. Sort of on top of what I just did with the pencils actually, but not too precisely, not perfectly on top. I use the pencils for texture, not to help me draw the creases accurately. Yeah, now I'm going to start painting the part of the tablecloth that is not the crease, the light colored. Hello, asteroid. Would not too much high chroma details compete with the main focus? You are exactly correct. They would. They would indeed. And I don't know if you're saying, is this too high? That is a good question. Is this too high? Good question. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. It is. Those are fairly high chroma bits. But all questions, all issues about energy it's a balance. It's a relative. So, like this lady's pink dress and this lady's pink dress. By the way, there were several women with pink dresses on. They weren't bridesmaids, so that's part of the reason why I felt comfortable to do too. Are they competing? The answer is no, they're not. They are. There's definitely energy there, but it doesn't feel like too much energy. Our eye, and the way you know that is intuition, but your eye keeps coming back to the bride. It takes little trips, or like junkets, like I used to like to say. It takes little trips out to these various places, but it keeps coming back to the main focus. Now, here's something that's interesting. We artists are a little bit different. We do, in fact, look at the world a little bit differently than typical non-artists because we're artists. So I'm trying to think like a non-artist when I try to guess how a non-artist is going to look at this, because I'm not painting for my fellow artists primarily. I'm painting for Jermaine and Tiffany, of course. And I'm trying to predict how their eyes are going to flow or move through the painting. And I think that that's what I just described. They're going to go like this. Now, if they get over here stuck too much, whereas an artist like you or me, we want to see differently. So we're more likely to go like this because we want to see exactly what's happening over here. Do you understand? I don't know if you saw the back of my head. So that's us, but we're the odd man out here. We're the weird people. So I'm not talking here about the way artists would tend to look at a painting. I'm trying to predict the way somebody like Tiffany and Jermaine, my client, might look at the painting. Okay? It's lovely. No, that's not what I mean. I mean how their eyes are literally, the track that their eyes are literally likely to make. The more accurately I can predict and control their eye movement, the more aesthetic pleasure they will experience when they encounter my painting. Whew, that's a mouthful, isn't it? That's my story, and you better believe I am sticking with it. That's what makes a painting beautiful, is the response, not what makes it beautiful. What makes people have the feeling that your painting is beautiful is their very subjective response when they, let's say, stand in front of your painting. What are their eyes going to do? That's our job as artists, to know those things, to predict them as best we can, as to put it in the colloquial. English majors, settle down. Okay? I'm also practicing right now a very, very, very common practice of mine. I adhere to this fairly religiously. That whenever you put down a bit of opaque color, you come back usually pretty quickly with a slightly lighter version of that same color, and put it on top of some of what you just put down a few minutes ago. Okay? That's a universal practice. Should be a universal practice, in my opinion, by everybody. So that's exactly what you see me doing. I did a medium gray after the dark details. I did medium gray, then I came back and I'm now doing a slightly lighter version of that. And I think I like that. Okay, now I'm going to, while I'm working on tablecloths, let's just move back to this one, back here. I'm not sure that I want to do the dark creases. There's one dark crease, but I want to, again, give just a little more, tiny bit more accuracy, if you will. Oh, by the way, energy consists of, what creates energy? Values, contrast, light, dark, next to each other, hard edges. I've given you three things, well, two things, values and edges. Values, edges, colors, and here's one that's often missed, similitude or realism. And that's what you see me doing right now. I would just try to increase just a tiny bit, the illusion that this is a tablecloth hanging down. Sorry, I know you're not quite seeing it there, right? And doing hyperrealism is easy, because all you do is turn off your brain and paint what everything looks like. It takes a long time, don't get me wrong. I don't mean it's like fast, not at all. It's laborious and painstaking and demands patience and so on and so on and so forth. But it's easy because you don't have to think. All you have to do is copy. Now, those of you who are non-artists go, well, I think copying is really hard. Yeah, well, that's because you have your skill set and I have mine. If you had mine, you go, oh, yeah, copying is not hard. It takes time, takes work, takes powers of observation, but it's not hard. All right. So energy. Let's go back now to, I think I want to tackle the tops of these tables just a little bit, since I did the fronts of the tablecloths. Now let's do the tops of the tablecloths, and I'm just going to, they're nearly finished as they are, but I think they can use a little bit more light on them. The dark is already there. I think they could use more light. Yeah, and the color I've got on my brushes right now is very much a buff tan beige, not terribly warm, very neutral. And I think that works. I'm keeping the warm stuff up here because I'm trying to capture that, again, the essence, the way the tables felt. And I do have a picture over here, as I showed you earlier, to my left, that I can glance at once in a while. Even though the color is not very accurate, it still gives me it's enough to remind me of what the evening felt like. Some enchanted evening. That's what I'm trying to capture, the essence of our evening together. That's a nice touch right there, by the way, where I made the top of this table run right directly into the back of Jermaine's jacket, causing a lost edge right there. I was glad I thought about it. Again, most of the good stuff that happens when you're painting happens on the spur of the moment, in a split second, a decision that you make that you didn't see just a moment before. And then if you're got your wits about you, you go, oh, there's an opportunity, and you do things like that. All right, now I think I want to, I'm going to do something up here. I'm not sure what yet. Bear with me. I said I want to do the work on the people, and I do. Not much. They're nearly perfect, but not quite perfect. So I definitely want to work on them. Just a tiny bit. But before I get there, I think I'll continue, maybe finish up the tables. So I can use just a little bit more sparkle, quite literally sparkle in this case, on the, I have a pale yellow, or not a warm white. It's really definitely a yellow, not a warm white. There were things hanging, not lights, but sparkly crystal things hanging from these trees that were on top of the tables. And I want to definitely capture that. By the way, I don't know how many of you are regulars who are watching me right now. Hello, Ethan. So good, thank you. I'm glad it's helped. Good for you. Hello, Michael McEwen. I have some enchanted evening. I'll meet him. That's right. I teach. Okay, the reason I asked if there were regulars, because I'm about to give one of my common, not a rant, but one of the things I say so often is that the human eye, if you're a human, this describes you. The human eye is inexorably drawn to punctiliar light. Now, why do I insist on using big words? It's because if I simply said people like to see dots of light, that's easier to forget what I just said. Whereas when I use big, weird words, you go, oh yeah, that's what Dan Nelson always says. He always says, the human eye is inexorably drawn to punctiliar light. Okay, so, and you may say, well, I don't know what punctiliar means. Well, you do now. So there you go. It means points of, dots of. All right. So the human eye is inexorably, that means it can't help it. You cannot help it. This is the way your eyes are made. You cannot help it. And all humans share this. We like dots, points of light. Now, one of the reasons I don't say human beings like points of light is because that would tend to limit your thinking to, in fact, this, candles, Christmas lights, stars, and so forth. And when in fact the application of this principle is like one of the most frequent applications is in landscape, seeing the dots of light coming through the leaves of a tree, what we again commonly call tree holes. So if I said dots of light, your mind wouldn't necessarily remember, oh, that includes tree holes. Okay, so that's why I say punctiliar, which means point-ish, dot-ish. All right. Now, just interesting, because one of the examples I use whenever I talk about that is wedding receptions, and how the decorators, if they are worth half their salt, they know this principle very well. Now, I don't know if they know that it's a universal. I suspect they do. So why, if you go to a nice, as this was, a very nice wedding reception at a very fancy place, and the decoration done by professionals, why are there not 4 candles on the table, but 44 candles on the table? Well, now you know, because they know, as I do, that human beings, our psyche, we get happy. In fact, the reason, for many of us in the Western world, the reason Christmas lights, so to speak, Christmas tree lights make us happy, is not because they remind us of Christmas. They make us happy because dots of light make us happy, period, no matter what the occasion, excuse, or holiday or purpose might be. Isn't that interesting? At least I think it's interesting. There you go. Things that Dan Nelson thinks are interesting. All right, now I think I'm ready to leave that, at least for the moment, and let's go to the people. Again, they're almost finished. You'll notice that they have almost no features. Almost. Let me zoom in here so you can see some of these. In fact, hang on a second. I'm going to pick you up and let you see these faces up close, so to speak. Lack of faces, what I really want to say. And this woman has the closest of any of the people to features, and I think it's okay. None. Here's two. One of my favorite things to do is to simply make 2 horizontal slashes, one at the eye level, one at the mouth level. No face. Of course, they will be, when I'm done, they'll be photographically real. Here's a slight hint again, right there, and a little bit there. All right. I was in somebody's office, some public building just the other day, and there was a print on the wall by G. Harvey. Most of you probably don't know that name. He's sort of Thomas Kinkade before there was Thomas Kinkade, and maybe one tick more continental, European, one tick a little bit more formal or better than Thomas Kinkade. I don't want to say better, but anyway, he's a very good painter. In fact, several years ago I walked into an art gallery, a really fancy art gallery in Dallas, Texas, and sitting on the floor right inside the door, literally on the floor, was a painting by G. Harvey, and it was about 18 by 24, something like that. And it still had the price tag on it, and it was $95,000. So he's one of those. I hope to be one of those one day. But I sure as heck ain't one yet. And I'm not holding my breath, Trying to become one of those kind of artists is kind of like trying to become a rock and roll star or an NBA basketball player, right? I always worry about that when all these people say you can become anything you put your mind to. Well, man, I hate to blow it. That's not true. You can become anything, I'm going to put it this way, God put in you to become. You got to have something inside you first. Then you got to work your buns off. That's the point they're trying to make, is you work hard, you can achieve it. Well, no. No matter how hard I worked, I was never going to become a major league football, baseball, or basketball player. Isn't that a shame? Of course it's not a shame. That's ridiculous. So I made sure that I didn't make that my goal. Anyway, how did I get on that? Squirrel. By the way, I took a quick detour. I'm not saying anything about it, but I'm doing a little bit of drawing on these chairs. Again, I want to give the impression of the chairs. I don't necessarily want to draw them rung for rung. Not at all. That would be a serious mistake if one of these chairs just accidentally was perfectly rendered. Okay, I don't want that. I want to give the impression. By the way, you can really make a case for that impressionistic painting is more realistic than realistic painting, than realism, because of the way that human beings actually do see and encounter the world. We do not see everything all in focus, ever. You know that. Okay, hang on just a second. I'm going back up. Okay, finally getting up to people now. I'm going to touch that. Do I want to give... Oh, I'm sorry. I got on the... Oh, that was a nice mark. I got on the G. Harvey. Forgive me. There was a reason I was telling you that. Sorry. Yeah, squirrel. Just call me ADD. Dan ADD. Anyway, it was in a public restroom, and I took a picture. Actually, took a picture. I'll show it to you, because he had a number of figures, people in his painting, several of which were facing our direction, and it was a big encouragement to me that the way he handled their faces is in fact the way I am trying. I'm not saying I'm as good as he is. I think I'm as good as he is on how I'm handling faces, but that's not the point. It's not a competition. But he's as you can tell, a way big dog painter. And I took a picture of this print because it was encouraging to me that he did exactly the same thing that I'm trying to do, which is just achieve just a degree of, just a hint. Now, I might be getting in a rut here by doing all these horizontal marks at the eye level. Another mark that you can often make is a shadow under the chin. All right, I think that's enough of the dark marks. Let's make this woman's hair come down in front of her shoulder there. Okay, keep these same brushes. I'm going to give them a quick clean. Now I'm going to mix up a brown flesh color to come back and do the maybe a tiny bit, not much. It'd be really easy to overdo it. It would be so easy to overdo it. A tiny bit of light color on these faces. Now, now again, forgive me if some of you if you're coming out of a racist culture, and part of one of your early stops out of racism is, and almost everybody has to go through this phase. Forgive me while I get philosophical for a moment. Almost everybody coming out of a racist background has to go through this phase where they are taught and they believe that all races are exactly the same and there are no differences. They have to go through that detox season because they came out of a season where they believed that, you know, some race was inferior to their own, say, for instance. So they have to go from that usually into a season where they say, oh no, it's not even appropriate to see, it's not appropriate for them to say, do you see that black gentleman across the room? That would be inappropriate for a person coming out of the toxic world of racism. So they have to say, do you see that man wearing a blue coat? Because they're not allowed to say that the man is a black gentleman. Oh, and of course, also, and I'm just going to tell you this, but I'm not going to, the term African American is in itself a racist term. And I know there's a lot of black people would say, no, that's what I prefer to be called. And believe me, I've heard that, but that's all I'm going to say. And I'm not saying those things because I'm a racist. In fact, I'm saying it because I'm unusually healed of the racist affliction. That's why I'm free to talk about things. So, having said that, I'm going to talk about what it's like to paint black people. And black people is not a racist term. That's a term of that fits with the way human language works, and it's a term of great respect. All right, but here we are, artists. What is the difference about painting white people and black people? And now, these won't really count because they're too far away. But the number one difference, if you're a painter, is reflectivity. Because the African skin, melanin, darker, therefore, simply because it's darker, it is more reactive or reflective to the colors around it. So I'm not going to say a whole lot more than that, but if you want to learn to paint colored people, woo! No, that's a bad one, isn't it? Woo! And again, I can only joke because I'm not afraid of, not paranoid, as most people in our culture are, and in fact should be, because we're coming out of a dark season in that regard, but we're coming out nonetheless. All right, so as an artist, the thing you have to watch out for when you're painting people with darker skin is they're simply by virtue of the fact that their skin is darker, it's going to reflect external colors more intensely. The first time I really experienced this, I was doing a portrait. It was in Grand Rapids, Michigan at Art Prize 2012, and I was doing, from my phone, I was doing portraits of people there in the parking lot. And I did 77 portraits that year and 100, and then 44 more the next year. So I did the math right, 111, I'm not sure I did the math right, 111 portraits. And I was doing this picture, I still remember this man's African-American, black man, was the name Vincent. And he was a very handsome young man. And we stood over in the shadow of a building, we were outside, and took a picture of him, sort of in three-quarter profile. And I was using my phone. Here's a side teaching. The phone is the best tool for matching color. No, not your iPad, and definitely not your computer. Your phone is the best tool for precisely, as far as electronic devices. So I was doing this painting of handsome Vincent, and I was looking at the side of his face, zooming in real big with my Android phone, which lets you zoom in a lot closer than an iPhone. It's like, his face is purple. I mean, when I blew it up, it was like the color of some kind of purple flower, African violet, something. I mean, it wasn't like, well, it's kind of black person face with purple. No. It was straight up purple. And I was like, I blew it, wow. And of course, it was because of the reflection. It was the blue sky and who knows what else, I don't remember. But so I painted what I saw, and when I was done, it looked It looked magnifique. It was beautiful. I think he's probably still on my website somewhere. But that was 9 years ago that I really went, whoa. Here, since I'm on the subject, I want to just give you a quick demonstration of this. You all know this is a phone. At the moment, the phone is turned off. So if I turn this toward anything, you can see some of my easel. You can see, I'm looking at my monitor here trying to, there, you can, oh, there's a reflection of my painting, right? It's a pretty good mirror, right? You see that right there? It's a pretty good mirror. Why is it a good mirror? Number one, because it's shiny, glossy, and number two, because it's dark. Watch what happens if I do something as simple as turn the screen on. Now, how good of a mirror is it? Whoa, okay, no, way there. Now we're seeing a mirror, but I just come back a little ways and the mirror quality disappears. Are you getting the point? A black shiny surface reflects outside color very well. A light shiny surface reflects outside colors not nearly as well. So that is in fact one of the differences between painting people like me with less melanin, lighter skin. I don't reflect I do, but not as much as someone with darker skin. So there you go. You just never know what you're going to get on this channel, do you? All right, I think I'm happy enough with the way my people look. All of a sudden I go, wait. No, I'm not. Okay, well, a tiny little bit. I want to get, this is one of the ways I paint sometimes. So I've abandoned the target thing, right? And I bet you do the same thing. I'm stuck right now in categories. I did the tablecloth, then I did the top of the table, then I did sparkle in the stuff on the table, and then I did people. So, but I just realized, no. Some of the men's light or white shirts and ties need just a little bit more sparkle. Now I'm using the word sparkle the way I normally do in the late stages of painting process. These little bits of light, again, punctiliar light, you betcha, is what I call sparkle. It was ironic that a little while ago I used the term sparkly, okay? So please understand, I don't use the term normally the way ordinary people do. Sparkle for an artist is those last little bits of punctiliar light. And that's what I'm doing mostly on the men's shirts right now. They were all just a little bit too dark. Now I think they're all right. I'm going to do a little highlight on this woman's shoulder right here. Yeah, there we go. This man's tie, let's change it from just, all the ties are kind of black, and so I don't want them to be that. All right. Hey, since I've got a dirty pale blue on my brushes right now, though, let's go over and deal with the light coming in through the open window. So again, here's my photograph that I took the other night. I took these pictures, of course, before any of the guests were there. It was still light outside. And I went over, this is, again, if anybody's a wedding painter, I took the liberty of going, then I went and pushed the button and closed the curtains again, which is the way the designer intended for the room to appear. All right, so I've done that more than once, learned my tricks. All right, so let's go up here though. And I've got a very neutral, dirty blue on my brushes. I don't want much of this color right here, but just a little bit. Again, I want to give the impression, which was a highly landscaped, very carefully choreographed, if you will, landscaped garden with trees And I don't want to I don't want to start painting trees or leaves or branches or trunks. I almost said stems. I don't start painting tree stems. I don't think, but I want to give the impression that what we're seeing out there is a garden. Again, I'm trying to think the way Jermaine and Tiffany will think and their children and great-grandchildren in years to come. I want them to have the impression, oh, the curtains were open and there was a lovely garden outside. Now they might think it's woodlands outside. That's fine. I can't quibble about that. Let me go back again. In my monitor, by the way, this is all appearing a little bit too intense blue, so I'm not sure that what you see is what I see. And since I've got this pale blue on my brushes, I'm just using it to give a little sparkle here and there to anything that's already blue. Yep. One of my main reasons for opening the curtain is so that the whole painting would not be brown. Right? Again, one of the tricks that I've learned from doing a lot of wedding paintings, almost every reception has this same color scheme. Warm, 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 warm lighting. Okay, very much on purpose. That's the way we like to see each other in, nice romantic dim evening light. It's all warm. But it doesn't make for good painting. So this allows me to introduce cool into the painting, and I've carried that all the way. Done anything to the cake today, and I may not, other than what I'm doing right here. Yes, I'm painting a little bit of blue. That's from memory. There was, if not blue, there was at least a very, very pale violet purple, and blue is, and sort of an iridescence on the cake. It was a beautiful cake, like everything else, the cake was beautiful. All right, now I'm just about out of energy for broadcasting, so let me just describe to you a little bit of what I'm going to do when I bid you all a fond adieu. If I can see if I have enough sticky wax up here to hold this. I think I do. To hold this. Yeah, there. We can all look at it together now. All right. Everything that I've done here, I did at the reception, flying by the seat of my pants. I didn't do any grid. I didn't do any measuring. I didn't use any scalpel. No, I didn't use any divider, compass. But I certainly will start doing that now. So the principle I want to teach, again, I say this so often, but not exactly this way. If you jump, as an artist, if you jump straight into photomechanical tricks, means what I typically call cheating, but I try not to use the word cheating because that makes people feel guilty. Cheating is legal. Don't worry about it. But you know what I mean. If you jump straight into the intense utilization of photomechanical means to capture your subject, that's perfectly legal. You understand? And there's times as an artist that has to be done. But if you jump straight into that, then your drawing skills deteriorate. And I don't know about you, but I do not like the thought of my drawing skills deteriorating, right? I don't even like the idea of them not improving. I'm still getting better as an artist, so haven't thrown in the towel and say, oh, I've reached my peak, it's downhill. No. We have strange pausing, don't we? Sorry about that. But since I'm an artist who gets paid to capture a likeness, yea, verily, a perfect likeness. Here, just since I've got one here, here's a wedding painting I just finished a couple days ago. And this is, now I don't sometimes I get a client that prefers a more abstract, which is fine with me. There's something about me that I prefer more but that's pretty darn realistic, and that's the size. And in case you're wondering, yes. Do I still have the reference? No, I think I threw them all out. Yes, this is an absolute dead ringer for my client. This is not like just a pretty girl and a pretty guy. No, this is them. All right, so whatever. Let's make the point. And did I use photomechanical means to achieve that? Heck yeah. Here's the bottom line. Here's what I want to say. Is that you utilize photomechanical tricks, tips and tricks, cheating. You use it on a sliding scale. So start out with no artificial means of support. Start just by drawing. Do the best you can. And then introduce a mild photomechanical trick, which is exactly what I'm going to do here. So here's the trick that I'm going to introduce. And again, I'm going to end this broadcast soon. A little while ago, I took this picture from my phone that I took the pictures with the other night, sent it to my computer, and in Photoshop, I tweaked it so it's exactly the size of my painting. The reverse, by the way, of what most people think. Most people think you do your photo reference and then you make your painting match the photo. And that would work unless you're doing what I say, which is start with no support at all. Just try to draw the best you can. You might say, well, I'm terrible. Of course, we're all terrible. Practice and you get better. But if you jump right ahead to some pretty extreme photomechanical tricks, then your drawing will never improve much. So how about much? That's just I threw you a bone there. So what I'm going to do next is a mild cheat, if you let me use that word, a mild photomechanical trick. And I'm actually going to tape this. This is all wet, but I'm going to hang tape straight from here so that this is right here. And at first, I'm just going to, oh good, look, sticks on the wet paint. I'm just going to look, like right now I can easily see that Jermaine's head needs to be bigger. Tiffany, she's a lot closer. And she needs to be a little wider. I always make everybody thinner, but I don't want them so thin that they go, wait a minute, you know what I mean? I want them to, you know what I mean? So I want to hit that balance, and she's not quite balanced. And she's a lovely lady, and I need to make her a little bit wider and realistic. Once I finish this stage, sometimes with this, I'll achieve a perfect likeness, say, boom, done, good enough. Other times I have to jump to more and more and more stringent photomechanical means, one of which would be utilizing a compass. And so I'll do things like this, the distance from the top of her forehead to the bottom of her chin. Ooh. So, her forehead, I need to make her, I just discovered I need to make her forehead go up a little bit. And then tiny things like the width of her mouth. Bingo, perfect. How far from the front of her neck to the tip of her chin? Close enough. I'll move that. Oh, by the way, speaking of which, here, one more thing. For anybody that, I learned this, I don't know where lately. I'm going to smile. I'll hold this behind me so you can see this really well. Okay, there's me smiling, profile. Now watch what happens when I press, keeping a smile, when I press my tongue against the roof of my mouth. Relaxed. Okay, and that's on a 67-year-old man. So there's a tip. Whenever you're getting your picture taken, make a nice smile, then push your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and your soft palate here will follow your tongue and go up. All the movie stars already know how to do this, and who knew? We didn't. So the reason that matters as an artist is that I feel free to to give women in particular a chin lift, because if they would have done what I just told you to do, their chin would be lifted, right? So maybe they don't know that trick. So I feel like I have liberty to do that, because I can say, well, if you had done that, this is where your chin would have been. Because again, a lot of women in particular, of course, will look at themselves, ew, I don't like my chin, right? So there you go, good tip.